Hey everybody, Alanna Kaivalya here. I am excited to be live with you today for this version of Yoga Inspirations, where I wanted to talk a little bit about some of our favorite yoga sutras. And I've been live a few times with these yoga inspirations, giving you some yoga inspiration for your afternoon, and going through some of the yoga sutras that are really beneficial for us as yoga instructors, yoga professors, yoga professionals. The Yoga Sutra, for those of you who may be unfamiliar with it, is the most important yoga text for us as yoga teachers, spiritual leaders, yoga professionals. And it gives us a great body of knowledge to work with in terms of how to carry ourselves, how to be in the world, and how to maintain that yogic state of mind. So you may have heard me talk before about how yoga is actually a psychology. It is a state of mind, a state of being. It's not a state of physicality. It's not a state of flexibility. It's not a state of heart rate or anything else. Yoga is a psychology, and the union or the yoking, the yoga that we're all looking for, is actually an integration of all of the parts of our psyche. So when we're able to have a good, steady stream of communication between our unconscious, our conscious, and our superconscious mind, then we have yoga. And maintaining that communication, that sense of integration, makes us not just feel, but realize that we are whole, complete, and perfect. It's not necessarily easy to do, right? As we go throughout our day, it's difficult to remember how incredibly whole, complete, and perfect we are. We have reminders all around us of things that stress us out, things that knock us off our center. And one of the things that most knocks us off our center all day, every day, are other people. It would be so much easier if we could practice yoga or spiritual practice in a vacuum, right? If we could just get up to our own devices, other people wouldn't bother us, they wouldn't break up with us, they wouldn't ask us to do things, they wouldn't fire us from jobs or ask us to do more of our job, whatever it is, whatever the demands, the pressure that are happening for us in our life, it's often coming from other people. It's a lot, isn't it? You know, all that every day. It can get to us and it brings us down. Well, one of the things that Patanjali tells us in Yoga Sutra 1.33 is how to actually handle these other people that are constantly around us and maintain what he calls an elevated state of mind. And the Sanskrit phrase for that is really beautiful. It's chitta prasadanam. And I love this phrase. Chitta is the mind stuff, typically meaning the conscious mind stuff, not the unconscious, not the superconscious. Interesting side note, and this is good for another live in the future, Patanjali's Yoga Sutra really only deals with the conscious mind. He didn't really know or understand the superconscious or the unconscious so much. That's something that we've learned and evolved over time and with our more modern, recent psychology. So we've got to add some of that in. But for the time being, our mind chatter every day can really get to us. It's our conscious mind that tends to get stuck in a loop, tends to get us into a downward spiral. We stay focused on something that doesn't elevate us, and we want to keep our minds elevated. So chitta is that mind stuff, the flurry of thoughts that tend to jam us up. And prasadanam, that second word, comes from the root prasad, and traditionally prasad are sweet treats, like candies, that are left on an altar to be blessed by the deities in order for you then to eat them and consume them as blessed food. So prasad has a very special meaning. What we want to do is take the chitta, the mind stuff, lay it on the altar of whatever it is we most highly are devoted to or worship, whatever it is we most believe in. We want to lay that chitta down so that it can be blessed. And through the blessing, it returns to us as elevated mind stuff. So we have chitta prasadanam instead of just the prasad, the sweet treats. So to maintain this elevated state of mind means that when you're in this state of mind, it's an excellent state of resilience. To have chitta prasadanam means that no matter what's going on around you, you can still maintain a sense of contentment, a sense of connectedness, a sense of even joy, even if life is getting really tough. And life will, all right? Just because we do yoga and spiritual practice doesn't mean that everything is going to be sparkles, rainbows, and butterflies all the time. It still means that sometimes the proverbial stuff will hit the fan. Even if we don't want it to, even if we've set ourselves up just perfectly, we don't get away with anything just because we practice yoga or spirituality. The only thing that we are able to do is be more resilient through what is happening to us so that we can say yes to our adventure, so that we can lean in to whatever the challenges that life is bringing us. It's those challenges, it's the leaning in that's actually going to create the most growth and transformation for our psyche and our soul. So we also don't want to be the people who turn away from challenge, who ignore a challenge, who pretend like it's not happening, sticking the ostrich head in the sand. No. That is not the yogic way either. We want to stand up and face it. But if we can do so with as much resilience and an elevated mind as possible, well then, we might be okay. And it might give us the perspective that we need in order to address and see what is happening in front of us. We might, through that elevated state of mind, actually see when someone is mean, rather than be offended by it, see that as a cry for love or a cry of pain. When we see someone is happy through our elevated state of mind, we might see all the layers of happiness that they are. So let me give you the rest of the sutra here that Patanjali is sharing with us, because I think, as a human in the world, he recognized that one of our greatest challenges is just going to be other people. And they are around all the time, and we can't get away from them. So what do we do here? So the sutra, and I'll say it for you in Sanskrit, it is the 33rd sutra of the first chapter. Maitri karuna mudito pekshanam sukha dukha punya apunya vishayanam bhavanatash chitta prasadanam. So that bhavanatash word that comes near the end, that is the I wish for ourselves. That we wish that we have this chitta prasadanam, this elevated state of mind. And the words before that give us 4 types of people and 4 ways to react to them that are going to help us maintain this elevated state of mind. So the first prescription here from Patanjali, it's pretty easy. When we see someone who is happy, Patanjali says, look, just be happy for that person. The challenge is if we don't agree with their source of happiness. If someone is happy because they've left a relationship with us and moved on with someone else and they're thrilled about it, can we be happy for them? If we are a vegetarian and we're out to dinner with someone who's eating a steak and they're thrilled about it, can we be happy for them? Here's the thing. If we're not, we're causing our own mind suffering. We're the ones in a state of judgment. We're the ones who are getting jammed up by whatever it is that they're doing. They're doing what they're doing. It doesn't matter what they're doing. They're thrilled about it. If we don't want to get stuck in that mind state of judgment, then our work is not to judge. And in fact, I would say as yogis that our work is never to judge. Our work is only to love. Judgment is that Judgment is breaking that first and probably most essential of rules as a yogi, which is ahimsa, to do no harm. When we're judging others, we're harming them, we're harming ourselves. It's the judgment that really is the insidious underlying piece of ahimsa. So no matter what this other person is doing, even if it's something that we're not stoked about or that we wouldn't do ourselves or that perhaps even that we disapprove of, let's just cultivate happiness for them. That's going to set them free to continue to do what's bringing them joy. And it's going to allow us also to reside in a state of joy, which is going to keep our mind state elevated. All right, so that's the first prescription from Patanjali. The second one, it's also fairly intuitive and easy. When you see someone who is sad, have compassion for them. I love this word compassion. If we break it down into the roots, calm is with, and the original root of the original meaning of the word passion was to suffer. So to have compassion is actually to carry a little pain inside your heart, to recognize the hurt of the other, but not to be hurt yourself. It's empathic. You're able to see what they're going through, but you can still remain detached. So when we see someone who is sad, we simply want to cultivate compassion for them, as opposed to being sad with them, getting drawn into the drama, that will de-escalate our own state of mind. Compassion comes from love, and that'll keep us elevated. So again, no matter the source of the person's sadness, perhaps someone who's just broken up with someone and you're like, wow, yeah, this is a great choice. You didn't need them anyway. That's going to be a reaction that brings you down and causes them more suffering. So when we see someone who is sad, again, no matter the source of their sadness, we want to cultivate compassion for them. Now, before I go to the next two, I want to pause here for a moment because people can express themselves in a lot of ways, and we are all very complex beings. If you study astrology, you know that, right? We are all a very complicated mix of all 12 signs. So sometimes someone won't just present as happy or sad. They might be a bit of a mix of both. What we want to do from this more simplistic prescription from Patanjali is just identify how we're seeing them. How are we perceiving this person? If we're perceiving them as happy in themselves, let's be happy for them. If we're perceiving them as sad in that moment, let's cultivate compassion. And for the next one, Patanjali uses the word virtuous, which we don't really have virtuosity so much in our culture anymore. Virtuosity would have meant someone who goes through, let's say, a clergyhood, somebody who becomes a clergy or studies the scriptures or, maintains a really spiritually based and elevated life. I mean, people definitely do these things, but it's not a quality that we necessarily tag onto or uphold or look for or revere like it used to be revered. But the same effect is when we see people who are lucky. Right? Like, let's say we're watching American Idol and we think, oh man, these people are so lucky to be on this show. Well, we probably recognize that they've also been through years and years of training and something in their background that brought them to this experience. So, and even so, when we see someone that we perceive as being lucky, you're like, man, they got the promotion, amazing. Then we want to be delighted for them. I love this word, delighted. Let's be delighted for people we see as lucky. Even if, again, we don't necessarily love the source of their luck. So let's say this person got the promotion, but it was the promotion we wanted. We might be in a great state of suffering, like, man, why did they get so lucky they got the promotion? That's not fair. That's going to de-escalate our mind state. And remember, what Patanjali is very much encouraging us to do is maintain that chitta prasadana, that elevated state of mind, because that's the best way to go through life so that you can maintain a sense of connection to yourself and so that you can maintain the kind of resilience that will allow you to accept anything and everything that is. It will allow you to say yes to your own adventure. If you're not in that state of mind, it's much harder to do that. Life just becomes very hard. Everything becomes very hard. So again, when we perceive someone as being lucky, let's express delight for them. Let go of our own judgment or thoughts about it. Yay, awesome for this person. The last one is definitely the hardest. So when we see someone who is wicked, again, when we perceive them as wicked, when we see them doing an act that, boy, we just don't agree with, it's really on the other side of the fence from us. We even might think it's harmful to another or to the planet. Kind of gets our hackles up, right? We want to do something about it. We want to fight against it. We want to say no. And we can. There are ways to do that. But what we don't want to do is get emotionally dragged or involved in the drama of the wicked. That's going to bring about the wrong type of energy for correcting. We want to think of it as a pendulum. If we see someone in the wicked space, or at least that we identify as the wicked space, how do we counteract that? How do we go in the opposite direction to create something positive as an antithesis to that? So Patanjali advises that actually when we see something that we perceive as wicked, we want to cultivate, and let me explain the meanings of these, either indifference or dispassion. So dispassion is a lack of connecting emotionally to that event. Because connecting emotionally to something wicked brings us down and brings down our state of mind. Indifference is not giving it energy. We don't want to give it energy Okay? I don't want you to think of indifference as not caring. We absolutely care. We're reacting because whatever is happening is something that we do care about. We have a lot of emotion attached to it. So we want to create something that is different and proactive and move in the opposite direction. So as an example, I've always appreciated the things that people do and the ways that they organize against drunk driving. So instead of focusing on the drunk driving, they focus on the rehabilitation or the positive aspects of it. That's just one example. But we could use many different examples for, again, when we see something wicked or negative, how do we move into the positive or the opposition in order to move into that other side of the pendulum? And that's going to keep us in a more positive, elevated space, that we're still proactive in doing something about it. We're not allowing that wicked or evil to perpetuate, but we're certainly not contributing to that wicked or evil, because that's going to not only make it bigger and give it more energy, it's going to bring down our state of mind. So I want to focus again on this chitta prasadanam, this importance of your own mind state, because a lot of us, boy, oh boy, a lot of us, we want to change other people's minds. We want to convince them of something else. We want to teach them something. We want to tell them that they're wrong, or we want to, show them a different perspective. When we are doing that, we're in their minds. We're in their business. And probably some of the greatest work that we can do as individuals is to mind, our own business. When we maintain an elevated state of mind, it actually uplifts everyone and everything around us. And I love the image that we get from the Hindu tradition of Indra's net. Right? So Indra was actually a precursor to the god Shiva, and he cast this wide net over the entire universe. And if you can imagine it almost as a grid system on a black surface. And I like to imagine little gorgeous gems hanging from each corner. And that's us. We are a gorgeous gem at each juncture of this web. And when we pull up our own corner of the web, you can imagine this grid system in your mind, what you'll realize is that every part of the web gets pulled and elevated, not just us. It's very difficult from our juncture to try to pull on someone else in another corner. Very difficult. We can't really do it, but we can stay focused on ourselves. We can stay in our own business, pay attention to our own mind, and elevate ourselves as much as possible. Now, there are many ways to do this, okay? And Patanjali gives us a lot in the Yoga Sutra. Other traditions give us other techniques. I write about a ton of techniques in order to elevate your mind as a modern day mystic in my book, Yoga Beyond the Mat. But I wanted to bring this specific technique to you today because it is so relevant and it is so time tested. And this has long been one of my most favorite Yoga Sutras. So again, it's Yoga Sutra 1.33. When you perceive someone is happy, be happy for them. When you perceive someone is sad, cultivate compassion for them. When you see or experience someone as being virtuous or lucky, be delighted for them. And when you see someone as wicked, go in the opposite direction and cultivate indifference or dispassion for them and find a way to put energy into the opposite. And we do all this in order to maintain our own elevated state of mind. So we can maintain a state of integration, connection, resilience, a state of yoga, which is going to make not our lives better, but it will make us better at our lives. And isn't that what we want? That we get to experience the totality of this adventure, of this life, with our whole hearts, with complete acceptance, saying yes to whatever comes our way, the good, the bad, the weird, knowing that all of it is for the purpose of our soul's growth. And as we stay focused on that, we elevate our corner of the web, and we, by doing so, lift everyone up with us. So this is my wish for you today, my fellow modern mystic and yoga teacher and spiritual leader. And as always, I want to thank you for joining me on this live broadcast. It is absolutely my pleasure to be here with you and to share some of these inspirations with you. I hope it has opened up your mind a little bit and that you've got something insightful out of it today. It is absolutely my own life's work to serve you in your path of spiritual leadership, and I do that in many different ways. You can find all of them at my website, alannak.com. I hope you'll come check it out, see some of the resources I have for you, check out some of the ways in which I help to educate you and help you step more clearly into your role as a spiritual leader. You're here with me because you've heard that call and you know how absolutely necessary that work is. And I deeply, deeply honor you for your work and what you're doing in the world. So as always, thank you for being here with me. It was my pleasure. I look forward to being live again with you very soon. And as always, until next time, please take care of yourself and take care of each other.